All right, guys, we are back here again. So our next guest is someone I found while working at what we call the SIL Center for Independent Living. He's one of our consumers. He's also a former employee, and he has come to our support group that we started called No Limitations. And he was a really good asset, and really I loved his input. And he's been through a lot, and I always kind of seen him in passing going by my office, and kind of talked about him, to Megan, who's been on the podcast before and who works with me. And yeah, she always would say like he would be a great guest, and I'm like, yeah, I'll reach out to him. And little by little, we've been talking off and on, and here we are. So anyway, buddy, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Tima Cummings. Um, I was originally born in Russia, and came to America when I was 8. I'm 36 years old. I live in low income housing right now. Now, um, I have my own apartment, which is great, and I was born with spina bifida. Spina bifida is a birth defect where the spine doesn't form completely towards the bottom. I'm not sure what level mine was at, but
Right.
it's where there's a bulge.
Yeah,
That
I have a
that
few
the,
friends who've been on, and they've had spina bifida, and it affects them all differently.
yeah, and there's 3 different types. I have the more severe type, myelomeningocele.
Okay,
So I'm paralyzed from the waist down.
gotcha. Yeah, because you're you're in a wheelchair, right?
Yes, I use a power wheelchair.
Power
I
wheelchair.
was I had a manual chair most of my childhood and for part of adulthood,
Mm-hmm.
but um, I I got a herniated disc in my neck. So from wheeling, I guess all those years is what they're thinking, and they put screws and plates in my neck between C6 and C7, and I basically then went to a power chair based on doctor's recommendation, and been using the power chair. I want to say about 15 years.
Wow. Well, I mean, I know that's a thing where if you overuse something to try to balance out your body, like let's say like you're having a knee replacement and you're using your other knee more than you're using the knee that has been worked on because you just had surgery, you can really do damage to that one. So I can only imagine how much strength and upper body strength you were putting into moving the wheelchair and moving your body, because you can say, oh, well, I only weigh so and so, but then you throw in dead weight and you throw in a chair on top of it. Yeah, you become stronger, but you also start, wheeling away at your body. And your own like inner screws start popping, and you really can really screw some things up. No pun intended.
Right, definitely.
Yeah, I mean the body. I think a lot of people we really really think that our bodies aren't as fragile as they are. Especially when we're young, right? You fall, you could break your foot, and it'll heal in like a month, and you're good to go, and so on. But we are very fragile, and obviously the older you get, like my grandma's 92, and I always worry about one fall could end it all. She's in really great shape, but one fall could do it all to her. And our bodies just we just wear and tear over the years. I'm the same age as you. I'm 36, and
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, like I'm doing all right. Besides my eyes and mental health and things, but for the most part, I'm doing all right, but I can feel some of the wear and tear that I put on my body having factory jobs and lifting improperly and all that, and just bad posture and all these things. And you're just like, oh man, like I got to try to get it right now before I really do some damage in my 40s, 50s, and so on.
Yeah, and my struggle's been maintaining a healthy weight,
Sure.
as that plays a big role in your body. And I'm a recent diabetic,
Right.
which is unfortunate, but And when I mentioned I was adopted, I do not know my biological family
Hmm.
um, because they gave me up at a hospital in Russia and left.
But I mean, how are your parents? Your American parents?
My American adopted parents are very kind, caring,
That's awesome.
lovely people. Um, Wait till you hear this. They've adopted 16 kids
Wow.
and had their first one was the oldest. He was their biological son,
Hmm.
and then my mom, from what I understand, wasn't able to have any more kids um, of her own, so she got in. Her and her friend got into adopting, and they're my parents are in their 80s now, so they're trying to slow down, but they still got grandchildren
Sure.
they they watch and stuff.
Do you have any need to like really meet your biological parents?
I did at one time, but it's kind of the idea is kind of leaving my mind. The only reason I say that is because they're in Russia. I don't know, and I had a social worker that brought me from Russia try to help me find them, but we didn't have any success. So it would take I would have to be connected to somebody that's really good at that type of thing. But so I kind of lost interest in it. It's not that I don't care about them. Um, they gave me a life, so part of me still cares about them. But I would have a lot of questions.
Right. And as much good as you think it could do a lot of bad too. Um,
Right? Yeah, and I think the most thing I want and wanted, I guess you could say, is to know if I have any siblings
okay. Yeah.
or
Because I mean, I don't think you have any interest in replacing your parents that took care of you. They may not be biological, but they're your parents.
oh no, I love my parents dearly.
Yeah.
They very much raised me as if I was their um birth son. So they
Right.
never treated me like I was adopted or I'm just an addition to the household.
Sure.
They've always treated me as their own son.
Well, and I think your case is the perfect example of, we like to say how important blood is, and it is to some degree. There's always some sort of kinship. There's some attachment, even if the parent or sibling is a shitty person, you still feel something for them because of what's flowing through your veins. But I would say, besides my mother and grandmother, a few people here and there, most of the people that I love dearly and that mean so much to me, I'm not related to at all. And I would have no problem saying, "Hey, you're my cousin, you're my sister, you're my brother, whatever," because it's just, you can't help to who you're born to and or born from in this world. So, like I said, there's always that search and that want to know who brought you into the world if you don't know. But if you have good parents, regardless if they brought you into this world, I don't know how much it actually matters.
Yeah, definitely, I agree with you. Because as long as the people that you're raised in, because you're not raised in, I'm sorry, raised who raised you, as long as they're good to you and they love you and care for you, meet your needs, it's that's the bottom and that's the bottom line um that is
Yeah,
very very dearing.
sure. As long as you're getting love and they're treating you as if you're their son, like I don't like blood is blood, but who cares if you're getting it from someone who really unconditionally loves you and wants the best for you. I don't think I think they're just titles at the end of the day. Um, and who you choose to make your mother, father, or whoever really became that and uh, took on that role and did everything that a blood parent should do, then like I said, you can say my biological parents, but my actual parents are here in town, and that's never going to change.
Right. And I wanted to back up a little bit. I was raised in Bentley Creek. That's in Bradford County, Pennsylvania, up
Hmm.
north about almost on the New York borderline. If you're familiar with Elmira, New York,
Right, right, right.
south Southport, Waverly.
Hmm.
I just wanted to mention that's where
Oh
I
no, you're good.
grew up.
Yeah. Do you have any memories of Russia?
Yes, most of them are unpleasant, unfortunately.
Okay.
Um, trauma that traumatic in some forms. I wasn't wasn't physically beaten, but I saw others be put in straight jackets just to give them a haircut because they had a mental disability. So
Sure.
I just think the straight jacket is a little too much.
Yeah.
They couldn't control these individuals. I was in a poor part of Russia. I was in an orphanage. I went from hospital to hospital, orphanage to orphanage during those first 8 years of my life, and I saw a lot of things. Like I said, and the only I should say the only physical abuse I did is when they slapped me in the butt because I would have accidents urinating in bed, but
Oh.
I couldn't feel that. So I do remember them doing that a couple of times, but not that I felt it because of being a paralyzed from the waist down. But it's just the thought of them, just the idea of them doing that.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of different cultural differences between other countries, and like America has its own problems with the people with disabilities, and it's gotten better, but we still have plenty of issues. But when you compare it to other countries, some anyway, it's like night and day. Where it's like, yeah, you're literally like sometimes we may feel like we're below other people, but you still can travel, you can still work and do things, and people may stare, may say things, whatever, but you can still live and you can still find ways to thrive. But in some countries, like you literally are just a thing and you're just thrown away, and they don't care about you, like you being abused. That's fine. Who cares? Like he's not able to defend himself or whatever reasoning they come up with. So obviously, I mean, it was good for you to be able to get out of there, even though it might not have been your choice. But either way, he escaped.
Yeah, I know I was fearful when that transition happened, but I am so thankful because out of all those kids, I was chosen because
Yeah,
it very well could have been somebody else. And I
sure.
would have still been in that environment. And I learned over the years, just learning about the Russian culture, there was a idea that, not idea, but there was a factor that after you turn 16, they would not, I don't want to say kick you out, but you wouldn't be able to stay at the orphanage. You would have to go elsewhere, maybe it's in a hospital or I guess the orphanages were like nursing, what we call nursing homes here. So
Yeah,
at the age of 16, they basically would tell you, "Yo, you can't stay here. You got to go somewhere else."
yeah. Well, I know for me, like it's very hard for me to. I have moments where it's really hard for me to be grateful and appreciative for what I have because I've struggled so much throughout my life. But like you were talking about earlier about having your own place and living on your own, like I have the same thing. And sometimes I'm always like, man, I wish it was bigger. I wish I didn't pay as much rent or all these different things. And then it's like, yeah, but look how many of us don't, they live at home and they may never escape from home. And like for you, like I'm sure you probably have moments where you're like, man, I could literally be suffering the rest of my life because I have a disability and I'm treated differently in Russia. Whereas it's like, yeah, my life may not be perfect. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of emotional pain. There's a lot of loneliness and all the things that come with it. But I do live on my own and I do have people who check on me and people who care for me. It's not perfect, but it's way better than what my life could have been.
Right, and it's definitely important to have a good support system, as you were saying, people that care about you. And unfortunately, my parents now live about 2.5 hours away, but I call them very frequently, and it's just and video chat when I can. But that's just the connection we have right now. I do plan to visit them at some point, but just not able to at the moment.
Because they were such a, I mean, because they are such a huge support system, why did you move away?
College.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't get too far into it after the orphanage. I was a, I went to Edinburgh University first
Mm.
near Erie, PA.
Mm-hmm.
But one semester, and I felt like I felt like a number. And the thing is, they're supposed to be the top school for people with disabilities, one of the top schools for
Okay.
people with disabilities, but I felt like just a number. I don't know if it's because I enrolled late and just got what I had an apartment, my own, not apartment, I'm sorry, uh, dorm,
Right.
and just was I felt like alone. Like I doing most of the stuff. I didn't really have caregivers very much, so I was basically by myself and trying to get to classes and stuff. The classes were good, but just the atmosphere and the environment is like you're just another number.
Yeah.
So my brother went to Penn College and told me what a great school it was, and I looked into it, and it was the best decision I made.
Yeah. I
Took
think. Oh, go ahead, buddy. I'm sorry.
took me about 6.5 years to get a bachelor's and an associate's degree in human services,
Mm-hmm.
but looking back, I wouldn't have done it any other way.
Right. No, I think one of the things that's not stated enough is the loneliness of having a disability, where you're constantly trying to find a place where you belong, finding friends that will accept you and like you for you. I mean, you could go decades in your life and never really interact with another person with a disability, at least on a level where you become friends.
Hmm.
And or anybody who just like dating is hard, and just all of it. That you for me, I don't know about you, but like for a good while in my life, I was constantly trying to find my safe space, a place where I belong, besides just like being at home. I was trying to find, like, obviously I found the Sill recently. I've only been there a little over a year, but I found other places, and then creating the podcast, and I found a lot of good people on social media and things. But for a long time, I was constantly trying to find this dream place, or find my best friend, or find the love of my life, and all these things. And I'm not saying they're not possible, but I wasn't really working on me. I was just so desperate for affection, so desperate to not be alone. And I was constantly so depressed and frustrated, anxiety ridden, because I'm just trying to find me a place where I feel like I really belong.
Yeah, I faced some of those challenges as well. Getting on dating sites, being rejected. Oh, that's an awful feeling. Um, Because sometimes they look at you on the surface. They don't get to really know who you are. And I wanted the perfect dream of, having kids, being married. It just hasn't happened at this time. And like you said, not saying that it won't happen, but it's just not how the cards are played out right now. But I'm blessed, but at the same time, I went through phases of my childhood and early adulthood um, where I would just be so depressed because I couldn't understand um, why why it was why it happened to me.
Mm,
Like
like you're
I'm,
cursed.
I, yeah, like I'm a good person. Um, like what? Why did I get this disability? Like I said, so it was definitely, yeah, and I'm still dealing with that now. So it hasn't really gone away. It's gotten a lot better.
Sure.
The acceptance of it has gotten a lot better, but the fact that I still deal with challenges today,
Yeah.
whether it's trying to go somewhere and you can't get in, or the sidewalks. They're covered with snow. They don't get to them in time, so I can't go anywhere from snow. Just a couple examples.
No, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, I can relate in a lot of ways. I mean, our disabilities are different, but I mean, I will say, like, and I've talked about this ad nauseum on here, is one of the things that to spin it in a positive way is I used to never want to even be myself. I never wanted to admit I had a disability. I never wanted to admit having mental health, or just I wanted to be whatever anyone else wanted me to be. And the older I got, the more I started to figure out who I was. Because when you're young, you don't want to be different. But when you have a disability, you don't have a choice. You're different. You stand out, especially in your case with having a wheelchair. You have the ultimate thing that stands out where they go, oh, okay, I can think what I want and judge. And with me, I couldn't see that well, and I'd run into things sometimes and whatever else. But I could still kind of get around it to some degree. But the older you get, then you become you become a teenager, you become an adult, and you start to be like, well, I want to do everything everyone else does. I want to date. I want to have friends, and I want to go out on the weekends. I don't want to just stay home and be lonely.
Right.
Yeah, and you just become so sad. But like I said, as the older I've gotten, the more like I still have days of real struggle. But I also know that I'm way less shameful. I'm way more appreciative and grateful for my disability. I've found the best ways to tapping into it and trying to use it to my benefit. It doesn't mean that life is just so much easier. It's easier than it used to be, 100%, but it's still a struggle. But it's that's why I try to use my voice and everything to advocate, because I know there's not many of us to look to, and that's one of the biggest problems is like if you're black, if you're a woman, if you're gay, there's a lot of people out there that you can just go, oh, you're a great representation of us. You're a person who you're powerful and you have a great job and you have all these things. There's very few of us. I mean, I get it. There's maybe hundreds, there may even be thousands of us out there fighting, but you wouldn't know it.
Yeah.
And it's hard because we need someone to look up to. Like, you want to be able to see somebody in a wheelchair who's a superhero or who does some kind of cool job or does something, and you don't want to just hear about that one anomaly, that one guy. It's like, oh, I knew a guy in a wheelchair who worked at Lowe's. It's like, okay, I mean, that's cool, but
Yeah.
what about like just everyday people who just so happily have disabilities doing everything everyone else does? And it's hard because so many of us are just secluded into our homes and are afraid to come out because we look different.
Right. Yeah. I totally agree. And it's hard to accept a lot of it, like you were saying, because we are. And sometimes I feel like the wheelchair, like it's obvious, like that's obvious,
Yeah.
like you were mentioning. So it's not like I can hide it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and it's like, like I'm curious. So like because I've been on and I still am on plenty of dating sites. Do you take pictures of you in the wheelchair? Do you do like chest up? Like how are you very like transparent about it?
I speak on it in my
Your bio?
introduction, in my profile, yeah, in my
Yeah.
introduction. But usually I do like headshots,
Right.
or maybe part of my, like if I have a collared shirt, maybe a little bit of the collared shirt and my chest.
Yeah, no, I get it. I was just curious because there was a time where when I took pictures, I would do it with sunglasses on, not to try to think I was cool, but just to kind of hide how my eyes looked. But it's like you're just trying to give yourself any advantages you possibly can, because when you have a disability, you're constantly at a disadvantage. So it's like when you're trying to date, you're just trying to get somebody to get to know you on a level to where they're like, man, you're awesome. And you're like, well, do you still like me because I'm this and that? And you're like, because, there are people who genuinely don't care and who are awesome people, but you don't find them as much. And I think there's
Right.
a lot of people that just struggle with us. Like they don't know, It's funny because like I've had conversations with people who are like able-bodied people, and they'll talk about somebody who's in a wheelchair or whatever, and they're like, oh my, I saw this documentary, I couldn't believe this guy like he wanted sex, and it's like, yeah, and like
Right.
he's a person. Yeah, but how does he? And it's like everybody has their own way of doing things. I don't know, and not that it really even matters, but it's like you got to stop looking at people like us like we're not people. It's just everything's different, maybe even upside down for us. But at the end of the day, we still want and desire all the same things you do. It's just different and difficult.
Right.
And it's like don't make our lives harder in the process because all we want to do is just be happy and we want to be able to achieve the things because when we achieve them, it's so much harder. And like I know, like for you having an apartment, like I'm sure there was a period where you didn't think that was even possible, and
Oh yes.
now you probably can't see yourself ever moving back home. You're like, I love that I don't care what you think of your apartment. You're like, I'm so happy that I have one, and then
Oh yes, definitely.
you have freedom, you have independence.
Yes, and that's really big for me because my parents raised me to be independent. I dated someone who also had spina bifida and was in a wheelchair, and her mother and father were afraid of her to participate in an adaptive gym class because they were afraid she was going to get hit in the head by a ball.
Right.
So it was almost like they babied her, and the relationship unfortunately didn't work out because I I was trying to be independent as possible and move on. Well, I mean, not move. Well, yeah, move on with my life and trying to get out of life what I needed. And she was not holding me back, but she wasn't making the same. Like
Yeah.
she was basically following what her parents said and staying at home. And I don't know if she just didn't have the drive, or maybe it was the fact. And our communication was not good either, so that played a factor in there. So, but like I said, I dated her for almost like 2 years,
Okay.
and
No, no, I was just gonna say like that is something I don't think we talk about enough either. Is like how brave you have to be to have a disability. Because it's like I think we do this, and after a while, it's like, oh yeah, you're just strolling around a chair, or I'm just walking around with poor vision, and you just think like, oh, well, it ain't that bad. And it's like, no, it's just we find ways to make it look easier than it is, but it's still a struggle. You just don't see the behind the scenes stuff. You don't see when I'm trying to reach for something, I can't find it, and I drop something, or they don't see how you get yourself out of bed or whatever. So it's like, I'm not even saying like we're hiding it even from you. It's just something you don't see because we do it in our confines of our homes, or wherever. But it's like you really do have to have some real bravery to be just out there, just flaunting your disability. Like, yeah, this like for me to get on a bus. There's like a lot of times I don't really know exactly what the driver looks like. Hell, he could have. I mean, I could see most things, but there are things that I miss out. And hell, he literally could have a damn face tat, and he could just be a terrible person, and I wouldn't know. I just get on the bus, say, "Hey, sir," put my money in, and you just there's a lot of times you instill trust in others, and it's not easy. It's really not. And like I said, same thing for you. Like I'm sure there's a lot of times where you're just like, I'm done with this chair shit. Like,
oh yeah,
but you can't be done with it, and you just have to swallow your pride. You have to deal with it, and you know that no matter where, like if you want to travel somewhere, it's not gonna, there is no easy route. You got to do whatever. You have one or two choices, and either one is hard, but you got to choose one. And a lot of times, like I know, like when you talked about with the support group, like you would love to come, but like coming at night just isn't feasible for you, especially with this cold weather we're having too on top of it. But it's
oh
like
yeah,
if you could participate in any way you can and just be home, then like yeah, why would you come? Like I know you would love to be around people, and I know you like Megan and things like that, but and Miriam and all, but like at the same time, it's like man, it's not worth getting ready and doing all these things when I could just stay home and be on the camera.
yeah.
Yeah, it's because sometimes
And
you got to make your life easier.
right. And the fact of us speaking out about disabilities and what others experience, I think that's a good platform
Yeah. No,
that
yeah.
gives people a voice.
Sure. I mean, that's the main reason I did this because, like what we were talking about earlier, not having a place to be ourselves, not having a place to where we feel like we belong. So I'm like, you know what? Sometimes when you want something done, you got to do it yourself. And it's like, sure, I'll create a place where people like don't listen unless you're a non-judgmental person. Like we are people who struggle, we're people who thrive, and all in between. But we're here, and we are people at the end of the day, and we have a story, and it may not all be sunshine and rainbows, but like this is true life, and none of us are celebrities, none of us are but none of us are any less than any of those people. We are just strong-willed fighters who every day have to go through something, and we're here.
Right.
And same thing with the support group. Like that's why Megan and I started it, is because there's nothing in the area like it. It's not an original idea, but there's nothing in the area like it. And and even if there was, it's like we just want to create a support group for people like us who can just be ourselves. We can talk about all important issues, like we talked about that night. We talked about like even New Year's resolutions, just and things we want to work on, and all kind
Oh
of
yeah,
little challenges, things that you don't hear most people like us talking about.
definitely.
Because we're allowing ourselves to be vulnerable and we're around each other. There's like 12 of us and we're just talking about serious things that affect us, and maybe some things are silly, but nonetheless we're in a place where we feel like we belong, and we can share.
Yeah, and we can learn from each other. The
Yeah.
things that, like if somebody has a suggestion, there's something that they experienced. It's definitely a good, um, like I said, it's a good platform. It's a really good group of people.
Yeah, and I don't know what you took from it. So like me and Megan, that we have a deeper feeling for it because we started it, but it's like each group gets, and that was the first one, you were too, but they keep getting better, and it's like the conversations are just, they just flow, they're genuine. Obviously there's some silly moments and there's times where somebody talks over somebody, but it's like, you know what, none of us are perfect anyway. We're all a little screwed up, but we still love and care for each other and support each other. But I know when I left there, it's like there's just a small part of me that's just, well, a huge part of me that's just like, yeah, man, this is so nice to have something like this, and it's just so nice to be around people who I know when if I mess up or something, like they won't judge, and these people understand.
Hmm. Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, it's not like some ultimate fix to your life. Like it's not like you come to support group and go, man, my life is totally different. No, but it gives you a different perspective. It helps you to know that you're not alone because you have to constantly remind yourself of that.
Right. And a lot of fun, able-bodied individuals, um, sometimes they just don't get it. It's not that their um, mental capacity is not there or something. They just don't understand what it's like day in day out to be in our shoes. I'm sure I can say that for just about anybody, but
Yeah,
I'm just doing a comparison here with able-bodied and persons with disabilities.
right. And I think some of it is stone cold like ignorance. Some of
Oh
it
yeah,
is just lack of empathy. Some of it is just they completely just can't comprehend what our lifestyle is like. I mean, that's a huge part of it. I mean, I think there's a lot of people who are ignorant, but it's because they just don't know how to comprehend what it's like not to walk or see or hear or what have you. And sometimes it's a reminder of how scary life can be. And like if you ever woke up and like you had the blanket over your eyes and you just see nothing but black, it's like some people, you might get scared, like holy shit, and then you pull the light on, like, oh my god, I can see. But like there are some people that there is no blindfold. That's just their current their constants. It's their permanent.
Uh,
And same for you, like, you could tie yourself to a chair, or you could say, hey, one time I got out of the wheelchair, I strolled out and they pushed me in a chair, and it's like, yeah, but you still have the realization of whenever you recover, or even in that moment, you could probably stand up. Ours is what it is. You can't change that. And I think some people are just really scared and they don't know how. It's like sometimes we're treated like the plague. It's like, oh God, oh God. Like they don't even want to know more because, and we wish they did because then they would have a better understanding for us. But they don't want to know because they don't want to know like how easy it is for them to succumb to something like what we have. Obviously, yours
right,
is more of a birth thing, but nonetheless, they don't want to know any of that because they want to be in the dark with it because if they learn more, then it's like, oh my God, that's all that happened. Like for me, mine was a medical reaction. I was allergic to a medication, and it made all my skin, hair, and teeth fall off, and it eventually
oh wow,
caused major scar tissue to my eyes, to my corneas, and everything else came back, but the vision. And luckily, I still have some, and they saved it. But at the same time, all I did was take a medication.
right. That's all it took.
And we all take medications, and we all know that there's probably some out there that we are allergic to. We just haven't had to taken a huge dosage of it yet. But nonetheless, it's just like, yeah, there are times, like everybody drives cars, man. You could easily get into a really bad accident. No, we don't wish that upon you, but it's like I think so many people just drive and do things freely in their life without thinking about the consequences, and it's all that can change in an instance. And I think,
Yeah, totally.
and that's why I just wish some of them were just more knowledgeable and more open to learning about us. You don't have to fully understand because you can't, but if you try a little bit, just to even to know a little bit of what we go through and how hard it is, I think you would have more empathy and you would be more understanding and not try to treat us like we're slow or that we're like a child or whatever. Like we are people. And especially when we're an adult, like we're one of the hardest things for a person with a disability. There's many things like transportation and so on, but like is finding our true independence. And even when we start to become more independent, we still try to find our own ways to kind of derail our independence because we're like, well, I don't drive. Yeah, but that's not your fault. Yeah, but yeah, I have an apartment, but it's not a house or whatever it is. The crazy thinking that comes with it. So I think we're all on. I like to say my foundation is a glass house on stilts because
Oh, there you go.
I'm always trying to solve my issues and I do okay, but I have moments where I'm some real humility and I don't know. Like I said, I try to keep it all together, try to fight through the pain and physical and emotional. But sometimes it's shaky. Sometimes it's like, man, if I fall over, this is over. I'm done. I'm sure you have those moments where sometimes life just becomes a bit much.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I also learned that I might be jumping ahead a little bit,
No, you're
but
fine.
I also learned it took me the hardest, but the longest time because I was raised to be as much independent as possible. It's okay to accept help.
Oh yeah, that's a hard one to admit or to accept for a while
Yeah,
because
you want to do it. You want to do it yourself.
right, because you're trying to be independent. You think that being independent is just doing everything on your own, but you realize there are some battles that are just not worth fighting alone, especially anything mentally.
Definitely.
That's and I will always say this, like mental health is another disability, and if you have any severe disability for sure, it's automatically going to come with mental health. I don't I
Oh yeah,
don't
definitely.
I don't know any of us who have severe disability. And again, I'm sure there's, moderate whatever, but there are people who just have mental health and that is their disability. But I mean, anybody who has the level of disabilities that we have, I don't know any of us that doesn't struggle mentally in some way, shape, or form.
Oh yeah, I from as early as I can remember, definitely struggled mentally. And my mom and dad always struggled to, because they aren't, they're able-bodied. So
Yeah.
they, I had so many questions, and it was just, at times, I think it was wearing on them that I had these questions and they just couldn't give me all the answers. So they got me into some counseling and
Hmm.
off, like about age 10 or 11 or so. And the counselor was pretty good. Um, I just spoke on everything that I, as we were then talking, on all the frustrations and not accepting